Live from the BoD studio in two locations in southeastern Wisconsin. It is Playin and Slayin. Troy, it is just the two of us tonight. But, we always said this is what it would become, book clubs and the podcast, just you and I recording our conversations.
Yeah, happy to be here. We'll keep the torch burning, the talk going, but it'll be good. Yeah, we're down a few people, but Bryce and Josh will definitely be back. We'll see him for next time.
Absolutely. And, we're going to keep trying here to be regular in delivery to our faithful listeners of content. So we're calling this one episode 61A. And that is because tonight, Troy and I are going to talk about what we've been playing, hobbying, purchasing, crowdsourcing, just kind of a grab bag of banter. And then a couple weeks out, we will be getting together with Josh and Bryce and both of us in an undisclosed location somewhere in the middle of Wisconsin to play games for a full weekend at the Weekender Part 2. And that is where we plan on recording a live show. So just a short form kind of hour probably that we'll bring to you as 61 Part B.
Yeah, it should be fun. Looking excited. It's coming up super fast. It's amazing. We're gonna be in the middle of May here pretty soon. So
the itinerary set, the meal plan set. I think this week I get the check-in instructions for the Airbnb. So ready to go. But before we dive in, and I mean, as is tradition, when you're playing and slaying, it's important to stay hydrated. So, Troy, how are you staying hydrated tonight as we just bring it home, the two of us?
Yeah, and it's hot. Although I am in the BoD, and so it's nice to be down here because I did not want to turn my air conditioning on because in Wisconsin it actually is summer. We didn't get spring. We went from winter to summer, which is typical. It was like 85. I don't even know what the real temperature is. It was hot is what it was. So
it was that muggy heat.
Yeah, and we don't get nice heat. We don't get dry heat. We just get heat, nice muggy stuff. I am not doing any alcohol though. I am doing needed a little pick me up, so I'm doing some Zambazon, Amazon Energy, acai, blueberry or berry, pomegranate energy drink. It's kind of when I want to drink Monster, but it feels like it's more healthy than Monster, but probably isn't.
It also sounds like it would mix deliciously with like Tito's vodka or something.
Yeah, it was. It has a little bit more. Yeah, it's got a little bit. It actually has. It's not completely. It's only got like 10 calories in it or something. But it's not completely calorie. It's low calorie, not 0 calories. So it has like a little fruit juice taste to it. So it would have a little bit of. Would be good with as a mixer also.
Well, I'm in night 2 of 4 of baseball this week. So when I get home from coaching 10U baseball practice in the heat, I have a little bourbon. So a Bibb and Tucker 6-year. It's just a good kind of flagship bourbon. And a few ice cubes, and it's very good. So that's how I survive 4 night weeks of baseball. Is by having a little cocktail afterwards.
And this is baseball like what age?
10U.
10U. All right, yeah.
Select baseball. So Monday, Tuesday practice, Wednesday, Thursday games this week. So it's a busy week.
Sure. So we shouldn't ask what's in your water bottle while you're on the field.
Water.
Water.
Yeah, water. It's after the game where I have the cocktail to relax. All right. So other than baseball, have we been playing anything? We got together with Josh just a couple nights ago, and we kind of all decided we wanted a little bit less taxing on our brains. So we were kind of looking through the shelves behind Troy to find something, and I think I just grabbed it off the shelf because I hadn't played it, and you guys had, but we played Clank.
Yeah, I was surprised we were both Josh and I are like, what? You've played that? We remember playing it with you, but I think Josh and I have played it twice together in different forums, but you were either not there or something on both of those times, but we remember you being there if you could take credit.
I mean, yeah, that's great that you guys equate playing games to me always being there. But I was not for that. So Clank is a deck building board game where you are trying to loot a dungeon before a dragon gets you. And so you're trying to go down into the castle and then to the depths below and get as much treasure as you can each turn, using cards to move, to purchase new cards, or to fight monsters that then give you gold or other effects. And most cards have a mechanic that adds clank or noise. So then you put your own cubes into a stack, and every so often a dragon card comes out, and then you put all the cubes that are in the clank pile into a bag and draw them out depending on how enraged the dragon is, how late in the game you are. And if your cubes are drawn, you take that in damage. If you get damage bar full, 9 or 10 health,
Yep.
you die and you don't make it out of the dungeon. And then you just score what you have in hand if you made it back above the ground level.
Yep.
So there's a lot going on, which I think is the only reason I kind of like it. I don't usually like deck builders. But this one, it felt like you're doing enough on a board, and there was enough theme to make it entertaining. So the, draw 5, do an action, purchase a card, deck builder that usually feels kind of tired, felt, original and, thematic. So the theme of Clank really pulled it through to be an enjoyable experience. And then I also won, so that helped. You guys subscribe to the Let Ty win the first time he plays a game, so that he enjoys it and maybe plays again.
Maybe we didn't. I mean, not that we were letting you win, but we also probably weren't. But nobody. I don't think anybody was really going cutthroat, except Josh, who stole my second treasure. I had a plan, and it got derailed. But he died, so then it didn't. I didn't feel so.
Yeah, that dragon got him. Yeah, I went for the go partway in, get a decent amount of treasure, and then scoot to the outside so I would be safe and get it's a 20-point victory point bonus to just get outside.
Yep, finish to actually get to the end, to get out and get completely out of the dungeon and above ground. So yeah, I like Clank. It has, like you said, it has enough theme. I love that theme of going in there. It reminds me a little bit of one of my favorite games from the youth, which is the Dungeon Quest, the GW one, which is much simpler. Go in, steal the dragon from the treasure, and then it's always just hilarious because that game, you never make it out. Like, you're lucky if someone makes it out. So it's kind of like another generation, much more going on, much more sophisticated mechanics in Clank. But it has that interesting feel of the clock running out, and it creates some, and we had some drama there where I think, I didn't make it out. I was like one turn short.
Very close.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I had 80 points. You had 61. Josh had 58. And he died the turn before you. Then you couldn't make it out. And the 20 points I got for making it out is what won the game. Yep. I mean, so.
Yeah, because we were real close. So it was fun. Yeah, it was fun. It was a good pickup. Again, something we were all kind of like brain burned for the day. And we're like, we don't feel like a kind of a heavy Euro. What's a good kind of middleweight? And it was good. And again, I think maybe we probably knocked it out in an hour and a half, maybe less, right? Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty quick.
Yep.
Pretty quick.
So it was fun.
Trying to think. The only other thing I've really been playing is a lot of role-playing games. So we finished up our Rime of the Frostmaiden campaign. Probably get everyone's opinion when we get together for the weekend, or maybe for a brief plot, conclusion, what people thought. But doing that, kind of getting notes ready for our next campaign. And then my weekly Vampire the Masquerade game on Twitch with Andrew, Mr. Mephisto, and others. We just did our eighth episode, hit YouTube and other places. Andrew did the editing, put that out. And we've got another episode tomorrow night. So that's Milwaukee by Night, Endless Elegy. 8:30 to 9 is usually when we get going. We usually roll at 8:30, and then by 9 we're playing. We're trying to get better about that, but it's kind of and before we started recording, we described this kind of like an inside the actors studio version of an actual play, because there's a little bit of discussion about why things are happening or what we're doing, and it's not all just play acting, and actors were real people and gamers, kind of, and that gets interspersed. But it's been a lot of fun. My character Salvatore, the clan Hikata, has made some poor choices that well, great in his eyes, but probably poor for the safety of his companions and his longevity as a kindred in Milwaukee if he keeps going down the path he's on. So
Seems like a theme with some of your characters, Ty. I don't know. You might.
well, Andrew and I talked about this. It's kind of that when you're the forever GM and you get a
Yeah.
chance to play in somebody else's game, you tend to push limits, and you tend to, it's the one that always gets a little wild and crazy.
It reminds me of a Paul DK move too.
Yeah.
So that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
we'll talk more of that in the Weekender. So
Absolutely.
in the finale of our D&D game.
So we're on Mr. Mess Twitch Wednesday nights around 8:30 p.m. Central, and it always hits YouTube a few days later, so you can catch up. It's been a lot of fun. Plan is to kind of take season 1, I think, through December, like making it kind of, up until the holidays, take a break, and then see who wants to come back for the season 2 or whatever. But it's kind of fun having a regular game. Vampire is a lot of fun. So yeah, that's what I've been playing. What have you been playing?
So the Weiss brothers, John and Ben, and I have done a couple of Board Game Arena games in the last couple weeks. A couple weeks ago, we found, again, we get sucked into their advertising on Board Game Arena, whatever's new and exciting on their front page a lot of times. And what they had was Seven Wonders Architects. So this is, I don't know if it's fairly new. Yeah, I think 2022, or it's pretty new in last year. So kind of takes a combined, I want to describe all, so it's a little bit of a combination of Seven Wonders, the original, which is what would you call it? Deck drafting game, right? You're kind of doing drafting, playing the different cards, card draft, resource management, where you're passing around. So you definitely have that in there. So it's really like a middle ground between that and if you've ever played Seven Wonders Duels, which I think is a really good game. I think I've talked about it in the past.
It is.
Because it's you against the other person, and very much so. Architects, again, plays up to, I think, 7 people again. But what it is there, you end up with the cards, much simpler in the resource management. So it's, instead of like all the different things, it's much more of a list, just like a basic resource or an advanced resource, or science and military are still kind of the big things, which is similar to kind of what they did in Duels. But what they did is they actually put the decks face up between you. So for the 3 of us, so there was 3 decks and they were all in between us, and you can draw from the 2 decks on each side of you. So you can kind of, that's some real interesting play interaction, kind of like Duel, right? Where it's like, if I don't take that card, then that person's he's gonna take it, right? So, but this card really is what I need, right?
You're basically competing with your neighbor for
resources and cards.
And they're competing with each other for your cards.
Yep, and for the person next to them. So again, 3 was interesting because we were all, we all could touch each other. If you get a little bigger, there is that, and Ben said he actually played some online with a little bit bigger. And what's interesting there is there are people that you can't, I can't interact with that person all the way across, because I don't have a common deck, but I have to count on the person, the people next to me who's next to them, right, to kind of do what they need to do. And then the other real cool thing from a visual aspect, your actual wonder is actually these really cool 3D pieces. They're all like puzzle. I'll say puzzle pieces. It's not a puzzle. It's just like you build the actual wonder. It has, I think, 4 or 5 layers, and there's all different ones, and some of them have. And then each piece, basically, when you building your wonder, they each take resources, and some of it is, you need 3 of a basic or 3 different ones, or 3 it says right on the piece what you need to build it. And so that's your race, is you're racing against everyone to kind of build your wonder and get to the top, because that's what ends the game. But again, that just means you're scoring, because you could end the game and still not win. But again, you have open scoring too, so you can kind of tell, you don't know everything, and you can't. It's hard to tell everything at the end, but you kind of know, am I winning? I'm going to push it to try and end the game, or maybe
Sure.
I'm not winning. I need to kind of stall and generate some, figure out how I can score some points, which are like science and military are ways to kind of score things out. So I ended up, we played online. I ended up buying it, ordering it, because I think it'd be fun to play, basically because it's got some real visual components that are kind of fun. So
the other Seven Wonders games play very fast. Is this one similar that it plays quick?
Yeah, I again, because you don't have again, you're always a little tainted when you play online because you don't have to do all the math, right? The computer's as cool as the computer's doing a little bit of like, oh, here's your calculations of what you can do, but it's not even as the basic Seven Wonders, it's not as brain burning around that, because it is pretty simple, right? You're just usually it's 2 or 3 different kinds of things you need to build something, and you're just pulling the cards out.
You should throw that into the bag for the weekender. That would be a fun.
It might be a good just filler kind of
early or late,
because it feels like it's maybe a 45-minute game, maybe, right?
Yeah.
If you're kind of running through it, so.
Yeah, but, absolutely.
So really, enjoyed. That was just kind of had kind of found it. I didn't really hear about it until it just showed up on. Again, we talked way back, right, about Asmodee buying Board Game Arena, and would it be good or bad? And so far, I think it's actually been, you're seeing more and more games get implemented on that platform. They've upgraded the platform. There's definitely more money behind it. They keep adding new things. So I think it, and they, and I'm discovering new games, which is kind of cool too. The other one we kind of found out there was just a pure kind of, we were like, oh, let's do this. Understand my idea about us being not wanting to do anything super brain burny. We found this game called VektoRace. We're always junkies for race games too. And what's interesting here, it's got a mechanic almost like an X-Wing. So there's actually templates. So you have like these templates for different speed, and there's no like squares. So that's kind of the difference, so it's almost like a Gaslands combined with more of a I don't know if you've played like a Formula Day game,
where dice is
where the different, because you're shifting, and when you're shifting, now you're getting a different template rather than different die. But you could build whatever, and then it's got some track, corners. Basically, you just lay out your track with the corners, and then just go, and then do 3 laps, and then some interaction. And so we played kind of the simple version to learn it. And there's something there. It's kind of fun. It's kind of interesting because it is kind of this in between. And it seemed a little faster with the templates, right? I think if you play Formula Day, I don't know, you've been in that thing, is like you get to the end and like you're counting 14 squares. If I go this way, I go that way. I count it out 8 times because I have to figure out all the different, right? What are my different options to get the way I want to go, right? This seems to get rid of a lot of that because you have some pretty simple choices to make. But they are critical because you don't want to be, you can block and you don't want to run into somebody. And it's got like a boost.
Yeah.
And again, pretty simple from like, you have like a boost and a tire mechanic. Like you burn tires if you want to do, maneuver a little extra. You can, and it's all hexagon. Like each of the templates has a hexagon. So it's like either I'm on kind of the front 2, we want to say, if it makes sense, the front 2 square, angles of the hexagon, or the very front if I want to go straight. Or if I want to burn a tire, I could go all the way to the side of the template to kind of maybe move way over to the right. So again, I think simple mechanics, but they really kind of played interesting. So
nice.
More to say there, and it'd be interesting to see. It's really only available in, I think it's only in Europe, I think it's more of it's probably a translation.
It probably means something in German,
in German or wherever
Dutch or whatever.
Wherever this is. So it's really, I think it's hard to find in the U.S. at the moment, but it is available on the Board Game Arena, which is again another reason for Board Game Arena.
Yeah.
So some interesting kind of fun games that we've gotten in the last couple of weeks.
Nice. Always good to hear what the Weiss brothers are getting into. Speaking of Weiss brothers, we should probably talk about our hobby challenge. Although Bryce and Josh aren't here, we can kind of, I think you said you'll be able to maybe share some of the photos.
Yep. If you're watching us on YouTube, hopefully I will drop a picture in here or there as we talk about the terrain pieces that we put together. So
So obviously the monthly challenge was a terrain piece with base. We went against what Troy does, where he doesn't base his terrain, and made him do some
Yep.
kind of base. Um, my selection was the Daily Bugle, kind of newspaper convenience store stand from the MCP Marvel Crisis Protocol core box set and a couple dumpsters. So I took one of the tablescapes, city tiles, did kind of sidewalks and the block, and like a concrete, a lot of dry brushing, a little bit of ink in the lines, and then painted the building and the dumpsters with mostly contrast paint from GW, then some washes, a little bit of weathering, and some metallics. A little more I probably want to do in the grand scheme of things to like finish it up with maybe adding some rust or other things, but I found contrast paint worked really well for weathering. So I just did some splotches on the roof to make it look like stains where maybe water had gathered, and then kind of streaks on the back from the top, to make it kind of look where there had been water damage on the wall. And I used some Tesseract glow for like there's these little lights that are in like metal cages. So just to add some fun with it. Over the course of a couple days, I kind of got it done, not taking a ton of time. But I believe that I earned a 5 point score for this month, as I based it. I had 3 colors minimum. It was assembled. It was finished, and then I used special effect. I did some weathering on the flat surfaces. The one thing I did find, and I'm open for advice, is I found contrast paint very hard to do on so many flat surfaces.
Yep.
Found I had to do a lot to like swirl or hide brush strokes, and as it dries, it was very tough with flat surfaces.
Yep.
So certainly, if anyone's got any tips there other than use a bigger brush, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not in. Again, as I did a whole bunch. I'm trying to think when I did a lot of the Zombicide figures.
Yeah.
Again, even it worked great for the ones that were high texture, but even some of the bigger monsters that had some of the bigger flat area, even there, you're like, oh, I don't even know if it's like I don't even if I might even went back and dry brushed on top to kind of cover up my because it just doesn't. It's as hard as you try, it doesn't want to give you a nice kind of smooth finish over anything. So
yeah, but so yeah, I believe I earned 5 points. Which puts me at 8 points out of the last 2 challenges for my total score currently. Troy, you want to tell us what you put together?
Sure. So you guys made me do a base. I'm like, all right,
Yep.
if we're gonna do a base, then I'm gonna do a base. And at the same time, I was getting, I don't know, I think I just all of a sudden had inspiration when I saw the new terrain piece from, is it the Battle Zone Frontieris Noctum, whatever battle zone? It's kind of the STC templated, kind of looks like a base that got dropped in by the Marines or something. That set really just kind of inspired me. I'm like, oh, this is really cool. And in there they have this really cool radar dish, and I'm like, oh, this would be kind of cool to like put on a little bit. It's kind of just flat on down on, and I'm like, oh, this would be cool to kind of put on like a little bit of a mountain or a little bit of a hill on there. So I went back to some old kind of 2-inch foam, sliced a hill out of there, got the old jigsaw out to cut some of the whatever that melamine board or whatever it is on the very bottom, and had to pull out the crazy is it Gorilla Glue, whatever, some good Gorilla Glue that'll actually stick to foam. Had to, going back to all the fun projects. So did that, and then pulled out the Sculptor Mold, which just that, which is that kind of newspaper, paper fiber, paper mache kind of mix, a little water, and then you get to do some fun sculpt, whatever that is, slapping it on with your
spread it around
like painting frosting
like
a
you're
cake.
making a cake. Yeah,
frosting a cake,
a mud cake.
Yeah, let it dry for about a day and a half. I think I ended up. I still don't understand, like, because you read it and like, oh, it'll dry in like 30 minutes, and I'm like, I don't feel like I'm overwatering it, but I need to give it. Yeah, it usually I don't feel good until I do like a day on it to let it go. So did that, and then kind of painted it up, and then again along the same time, assembled the terrain, which isn't too much, and then I just did a quick kind of dry brush on the terrain piece itself, and I actually put the base of it into the Sculptor Mold, and then I pulled some stairs from the Necromunda set that I kind of built into the hill.
I was going to ask where did the stairway come from?
Yeah, that's out of the Necromunda, the crazy pile of bits that was left over from that. And so I'm like, oh, this is a good reason to use a staircase, because otherwise I'm like, what do you use a staircase for, right? So I think it actually came out pretty good. And then I really had fun, and I'm only going to take 4 points because I still want to do some special kind of weathering, do a little bit more work on the actual dish itself, doing some of that, and then come in and do a couple. I did like 1 or 2 passes with the dry, which was so satisfying. Was to like that Sculptor Mold has so much texture to it.
Oh yeah.
And I kind of just did a dark brown kind of craft paint kind of base, and then came after it with, I'm trying to think I don't even remember what I used for. What did I come after it with? Oh, just Zentry. Is it Zentry dust? Xander dust. Yeah, Xander dust. Yeah, I think I did that as my first kind of dry brush on it, and it just was super. It was just coming out so cool. There's so much texture there. But I want to do a couple more kind of different colors in that. Maybe add some sand or rock texture just a little bit on there, and then maybe a little bit of weathering. So I'm going to take 4 because I still want to do a little bit kind of to put it over the top. But it was a really satisfying. There's something about a good chunky terrain piece like that.
Yeah,
that really is. It's satisfying.
Well, it looks really nice, and it'll have a place on a battlefield. Like it'll work. It's functional, but it looks nice. All right, so 4 points, Troy, puts you at 9 for the challenge. So you are the current front runner. Bryce did not complete a hobby project for the second month in a row. I know he said he gets 5 points because he's Bryce, and he'll catch us anyways as the year goes on. But he did frame more of his desk and cabinets in the future hobby room. So, I mean, I guess that's a couple points. We can probably confer with the other judges and see
that's
what they say.
Yeah,
home hobby is hobby. So
yeah, because he definitely has a base. He probably has like a base coat on there.
He assembled. I don't think he painted yet. So he gets 2 points for his hobby desk effort.
Yep. And then Josh is he's either in the 4 or 5 point range because he did something similar to what you would.
Yeah, it looks like he 3D printed a construction trailer, and he gets the bonus point to 5 because he printed a Weiss Brothers sign to hang on the building. So evidently the Weiss Brothers are Marvel Universe canon now.
Right.
There's a company in the Marvel Crisis Protocol world. But it looked like he 3D printed and painted, did a city tile base. The only thing missing might be like the weathering or the finishing touches, but the Weiss Brothers sign probably gets him that.
It's gonna get him. Yeah, point. we'll give him that 5. That gotta be. I did not. He posted it this morning, and then I did not see it until this evening when I pulled up Discord, and I got a huge kick out of that. That was very, very funny. That was good.
So that brings Josh's total to 7.5. So it's pretty close up top. 9, 8, 7.5, and then Bryce. He's never count Bryce out when it comes to hobby challenges, because the moment he's got his desk, it's just going to be 5 after 5 after 5 coming. I think at the Weekender we'll probably talk about what is next as far as a challenge. We talked a little bit about the hobby challenge being we each have a character that we're painting, so that might become our next episode if we turn it around quick. I myself am going to assemble and paint Moon Knight out of the Blade and Moon Knight set to bring with the other models I have. What are you doing for the Weekender?
I think it's Colossus. It might be Mystique, but I think it's between those two. Which one am I gonna?
An X-Men adjacent.
I have a big pile of X-Men-ish ones too that I'll pick one of. So
And I can't remember what Josh was gonna do. Thanos, maybe.
Oh, maybe. Oh.
Bryce is gonna do one too. So we'll see with what they do, and we'll recap at the weekend or live recording. But that'll be just a couple weeks out for our next goal, and we'll see where we get there. I did do a lot of work with contrast. I talked about that. I also started playing around using contrast paint with the Hero Quest doors. I don't know if we talked about your doors last time or my doors too much, but I did the black primer, and then I dry brushed a gray, and then heavy dry brush, then I dry brushed white, like a gray white, before I applied the contrast. So I kind of did the fake zenithal / slap chop method of painting, and then put contrast on and get some really cool looking stone effects. The vines look nice. The wood colors come in nice with that gradient from the grayscale kind of undercoating. And you worked with the Army Painter speed paints for your Hero Quest.
Yeah, the Army Painters, that was kind of the twofold. One is the Hero Quest stuff is fun to paint. And then I think we had talked about, I had picked up the starter kit of the speed paints at Adepticon. And I thought, this will be an interesting just project to I'm just going to try and use a lot of the speed paints on those and see how they work. And because again, you can watch a million videos on YouTube about other people doing it, but until you do it yourself, right, you usually don't get a feel for that. So I did all my doors. And I just did a base. I cheated, I guess. I used the GW. What's the warm undertone color? Not the gray sear, but the other one I think is the one that's more of a warm white is the undercoat spray paint. And I didn't do any. Yeah, and I didn't do any. I didn't do any zenithal because I'm just want to keep it pretty simple just to see how it works out on that. And so, and then use the. I should get it over with the actual, but there's a gray in that starter that worked out that looked really nice. And then some of my favorite colors are there's like a leather that I used for the wood on the door. And again, super satisfying to paint with those because you're just like, and what I found, again, just not a whole lot of experience. I did do one orc miniature, I think one orc miniature too, just to use some of the greens and that. And then I used regular GW metallics for a few things to kind of finish it up. But it seems like the speed paints maybe are a little bit more, I'll say, consistent than the contrast. Like I feel like the contrast paints, you really got to know this color acts this way, this color acts this way. This one's much more opaque than the other ones. I think there's some of that with the speed, but the speed paints themselves feel a little bit more consistent, at least from the ones that I've touched on. There is something around, again, you'll see different people have that experience too. There is something around the speed paints not being almost even more touchy than like contrasts. You want to paint and then don't go back over it, right? It does, right? You can't kind of, once it starts to dry, you don't want to touch with it. I think the speed paints are even a little bit more sensitive to that than the contrast are, I think, a little bit. And they might even be a little bit more slow drying, which is kind of weird. It puts in a weird thing. And then I haven't had as much, again, people are talking about too, I think if you see it right, about the speed paint will sometimes, which I haven't seen in contrast, reactivate. Like if you go back over it with another wet paint, like they won't. And some of that may be just the super long drying time or whatever. But so you really have to be careful that you're not going to. It was interesting. What's her name? Dana. I don't remember who the YouTuber, the painter. I should find her. Dana Howell. Dana Howell. It was interesting. She has a really good video on that where she played around with experimenting with. What her advice is just if you're going back over on kind of the speed paint, just make sure you're not going back with more of a wet paint, almost going back with a drier paint or dry and you just making sure you're not, and then you can do, and then she was showing some pretty cool effects with doing even some blending and things like that. So again, get your hands on them. There's a lot there. They're interesting. They're another tool in the toolbox. I think there's a few, again, I like some of the colors that are just going to be probably like, these are going to be awesome to just, especially something about leathers and wood color, right? Paint that you can do in just a one pass and that you're going to use for a lot of different things.
that's the thing I found. I buy all these different paint sets and stuff, and then I find one or two paints that I really like, and I just add to the. So like when I'm doing a project, I've got, some Vallejo air stuff. I've got my metal air paints. I've got my couple contrast paints that I love, like Basilicanum Gray
Yep.
and like Gilliam Flesh and
Yep.
Snakebite Leather and Wildwood. There's just a
Yep.
handful. And then like my instant paints from Scale 75, I've got and my Intensity like Chestnut Ink and Payne's Gray, like the De La Rowney Payne's Gray ink.
Yep.
There's just these. So I end up with like 17 different brands and like a paint from each line that I just like.
Yep.
And you end up kind of putting it together. And if somebody was to say use only contrast paints or use only this, I'd be like, I can't do it.
Yep. And it's thing. So because it's fun, and I did get a hold of the mega set. Just because what I found is if I wanted to really use those for the Hero Quest guys, I needed more. There aren't really enough colors in that base set from, I think it's a 10 or 12 in there. And there's some big misses, there's not some blues or pinks or something in there that's not in there.
Almost like they're trying to get you to buy.
Yeah, right. It's a nice, like, again, the starter is what it is. It's like, oh, I'm going to dip my toe in that, right?
Yeah.
And then I was able to. Now I don't. Hopefully, in the next, I know they had sent out like everything else. They were having supply problems, and it's good. I think good problems, right? Like people are really bought. I think they bought up all the initial release of the speed paints. So hopefully, if they get out and because I don't think they're available in single bottle yet. And so the really only way to get all the colors is to kind of in that mega set. But even that, I think, is sold out. I made the mistake of waiting one extra day at Games Universe. I'm like, oh, they have it. And it was like, oh, it's $100. That's not too bad. And then I'm like, oh, I'll just go get it the next. I think I'd stopped on the way from work. And then over the weekend, I'm like, I'll go in on the weekend and grab it. And it was gone. And so I ended up getting one on eBay. I think I actually got it a little cheaper on eBay. But yeah, it's hard to find them. I think you can just find the starter, but that mega set is a little bit harder. But hopefully they sent something out saying hopefully they're going to get their supplies and then they'll be available in single color too. I think that's going to be the way because people are going to find certain colors that they really like.
Yeah,
and they're just
stock up on.
And they're going to take them because again, that's the thing with those big sets. There's colors in there that you end up never using, right? And it's
definitely. All right. So that's hobby. We'll check in with Bryce and Josh at the Weekender on Marvel Crisis Protocol goals, what they got done. Let's talk Kickstarter. So I haven't been kickstarting much of anything. I'm kind of waiting for a lot to come in, like the Wet Palette 2, the Zombie Side Old West set, Frosthaven, the Gloomhaven expansion. So I've got these projects out there that have been out what feels like forever. But I saw a new one hit, which was actually something I really, really enjoy. So there's a kind of a radio drama podcast called Old Gods of Appalachia. So they tell kind of 20-minute stories about, it's like Cthulhu meets, the hollers and back hills of Kentucky and like the southern kind of mountains. So coal miners and, kind of Depression era. So it's like 20s and 30s ish with Cthulhu elements. So you get like the snake charmer churches and like the preacher that starts hearing these voices from the old gods or this witch that lives out in the swamp. And like, they're just fantastic stories. Well, as any great IP deserves, it gets a role-playing game that Monte Cook Games, using the Cypher system, produced. It looks like a really good book. It just closed. They funded almost instantly, and I think they hit $2 million, which was pretty incredible for, for a podcast RPG kind of crossover. So will I ever play it? I don't know, but I wanted to get the book. Really like the podcast. Every time they address their listeners as family, and it's grown and gotten huge. I mean, it started as just a small, a guy trying to produce, one or two guys write these stories and get the voice actors, and one of the writers is a voice actor, I think, on it. So I'm interested to see where that goes. it looks like a pretty decent timetable for turning it around as well.
Yep.
So
cool. Yeah. So in RPGs that I'll buy and never play, I also Blade Runner, the RPG, is up there on Kickstarter. I think it's still got a couple weeks left. Even hopefully as you're hearing this, it is. I should know who does it, but we'll
find out shortly.
Yeah.
So Blade Runner, based on the movie franchise, starring Harrison Ford and Rutger Hauer, and then Ryan Gosling, right, was in the Blade Runner 2049.
39?
20-something.
20-something.
Not 2021, which I think the first one was set in.
Yeah, right. It's like, I think we went, like there's
2020.
That's just, Free League Publishing, which is the group they did. I think they did for
Morkborg,
Alien RPG. Yep.
Alien, yeah.
So we've gotten stuff from these guys in the past. So that was the other. So I saw it, and again, I thought the same. Like, I love the brand, love the IP. Is it something I'll ever play? I don't know, but it'll just be cool to kind of get the book and look.
If they did a new engine, or are they using the Day Zero engine? They use Day Zero engine for a lot of their stuff.
I think it's a good. I'm trying to go real quick here. Yep, Year Zero engine.
Year Zero, not Day.
At least that's what I'm seeing here. So that'll be fun. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what they're able to put in there. Again, I think it was one of the ones with just the IP. They hit they're over $1 million. Still a couple weeks to go. So
nice.
And I did get I did get yet another PDF from the second edition of 7C.
All right.
6 years later. So we're still in delivery.
And counting. That is crazy. Just crazy. But hey, at least they're still following through and pushing it out.
Yep.
All right. Let's talk a few other things. I've just got a few quick notes here. First is, so Wizards of the Coast kind of did a State of Magic like they did D&D Direct. They kind of showed, I think it was today. I didn't look too much into it because I saw, a new Dominaria set, a Masters set. But then it looked like the third one that they're talking about in the upcoming release cycle is the Warhammer 40K crossover set. So that's coming. It sounds like maybe fall, maybe Gen Con-ish, post-Gen. I don't know. I think it's the end of 22 that they'll deliver that. And that I'm sure will be one where we'll buy some packs and assemble some decks and
throw some. I totally forgot about that. I remember it being announced. Until you mentioned that. Yeah, I didn't. I would have got surprised when that came out again. So
it's in the pipe.
Exciting.
It's in one of the next 3 sets. So their sets are a couple months. I think they cycle them. So maybe we'll see that by end of the year. They probably told us the official dates, but I did not take the time to research. I just saw it and thought, oh, cool. I want to tell Troy, but missed all the relevant details. The other thing I saw today is artist Max Dunbar partnered with Joe Manganiello and Death Saves to do a new design, and they launched a T-shirt for Krull, the Tortle Cleric of Tiamat from Avernus, so Arkan's companion. So I definitely went and purchased a Krull T-shirt. It has like this cool rendering of the Tortle Cleric with his big axe, and then the axe with the skulls flaming on the back, like across the shoulders of the shirt. So should have that in a handful of days. Probably wear that the next time we record, just to show off my Death Saves T-shirt. But throwback to Avernus, and then a cool character. Nobody gives Tortles the respect that they deserve. So
we could. And I don't have it on here, but the interesting Joe Manganiello connection I've been watching on YouTube. I don't know if people there's a resin table woodworking company that's doing a new table for his D&D room. And I think if you look, you'll be able to find it if you search in. It's black, whatever. I think they're actually in Canada. I think they're in kind of the British Columbia, Vancouver area. But so they're doing this huge live edge. If you've seen it, like live edge, giant logs, and then they pour gallons and gallons of resin into the middle, and so they haven't. I have not seen it for the final delivery to it, because I think they're going to do a video when they're actually, of course, they're going to deliver it in person, I think, to his house on that. So it'll be interesting to see when that video comes out. But there's a couple out there as they're actually building that table, and pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, it's monstrous. I got to think it's like 12 feet long. You know, it's like,
well, it has a huge home game.
that huge thing.
Crazy how many players that they have.
Yeah, so it's gonna. So that's interesting.
Talk about a game that'd be fun to sit in on sometime.
Yep. Yeah, it's crazy.
Right. And then the other thing I do, just kind of coming up, this could have probably gone in events too, but want to take a minute. So May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Certainly a lot being talked about and said for kind of making that a focus. But Andrew, so Mr. Meff, announced the Rantathon dates and kind of put the Tiltify page live. So even though it's a few months out, end of July, Saturday the 30th to Sunday the 31st, he does his 32-hour marathon stream. Every 2 hours, different guest block, different prizes to win as you enter. And he did have the executive director of the charity take that, I believe, is the charity organization that he'll be raising funds for, which is a mental health programs. But coming up in July, and then Milwaukee by Night, the Coterie is doing a cast block from 8 to 10 on Saturday. So we'll get to chat, and I think we're gonna talk about who knows what, but maybe some like character design ideas and just basic storytelling. You know, you want to talk about inside the actor studio. That'll be that 2 hour stretch. So
that'll be fun. And there's there's so many. It's been this is third year, third year,
I think. Yeah.
But yeah, and then they've all other ones have been so interesting to listen to. He has such interesting people on from around the world. Right, to chat, and it's for
There's Australians. I think Seasons of War is lined up. Vince will kick it off with him early in the day. Travis Winter from Atlas Games. He does the veterans of Sigmar and the doctors. Just a whole range of folks that he'll have on, and really cool prize blocks. I don't know if he's in. I don't want to spoil, but there's some incredible support that they've organized this year. So that I'm sure I'll drop more reference to that here as it gets closer, but I'll use my 5 seconds on a soapbox and say mental health is incredibly important. Take care of yourself, take care of your friends, talk to somebody, have that conversation, because it is the best thing that one can do for themselves.
Yep. Can't say enough.
Yep. And we'll say 32 hours of stuff in July. But all right, let's crack the doors into the BoD library. I did not add anything about watching or like this is strictly reading. So I'll kick it off, Troy. I saw a Hulu series coming with Andrew Garfield called Under the Banner of Heaven, and he's like a detective. I'm like, what is this about? So then I researched. It's based on a book written by John Krakauer, the guy who wrote Into the Wild. And he wrote this book in 1998, Under the Banner of Heaven. And it is a analysis of kind of Mormon fundamentalism and the different like polygamous groups that have fractioned off, because there was a killing in the late 80s where 2 Mormon fundamentalists said they had received like a guidance from God to kill this woman and her daughter, her like infant or toddler daughter. So the show dramatizes it. Haven't started yet because I want to read the book, but I'm reading this and it's enthralling. Like I had no idea. It breaks down the start of like the Mormon church and Joseph Smith and how he was kind of a con man and a swindler and like started let's call it a cult for lack of a better word, that has become this huge modern religion, like the fastest growing religion in the world in the last 50 years, and all this money and it really gets into that, and it's overlaid as you're learning little bits and pieces about this guy Dan Lafferty, who's one of the killers, and how he went kind of down this path of like fundamentalism and his beliefs, and where he thought he was getting guidance, from God to do these things and live this way. So just, it's one of those, I don't usually read like true crime or anything, but this is kind of a study of the power of religion and however power can be described, I think many different ways. You can think of power as kind of this just ability to shift people's viewpoints and belief systems, and its impact on this crime in the 80s. So it's enthralling. Like every night I'm reading like a chapter because it's nonfiction, so it's not like easy, fly through it. But it's incredibly informative, and I'm trucking through that paper. So I ordered the paperback, and I'm reading that one, physical. And then I was also listening to another book on Audible called The Cartographers, which I don't know why I read this one, but it was prompted as a "you may like this." The author is Peng Shepherd. She wrote it, and it is, I mean, it's about a group of people that make maps and study maps, and it kind of has this New York Public Library tie-in, and there's this break-in and this mysterious death. And then there's this group of people that were graduate students at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. So there's like this
there's a tie
connection to geography and Madison. And it kind of goes down this path of like the different reasons people make maps, and that maps are used to bring people together. But there's kind of this like mystical realism, magical realism twist that some maps have hidden things in them, and those hidden things are called phantom settlements, and that's evidently a real cartography term. But these hidden things, not spoiling too much, have the potential to be real. So like you might draw in a room in your house that isn't there, but when you use the map, you can find that room. So it has this element, I guess it's like a modern thriller, almost like Da Vinci Code, but with this mystical element. It was really good. I could not like get it done fast enough. And it tells the story at different points from different viewpoints of this original group of cartographers, and then one of their kids that is kind of now trying to solve the mystery of her father who's dead, and she's been estranged from him, so like wasn't made aware of any of his secrets, and now she's kind of uncovering this mystery. Highly recommend that book. And then Landon and I, after a few months of not reading more Redwall, so we read the first Redwall, I think kind of almost a year ago. We read through Mossflower, the second book, and now we're on Mattimeo, the third book. So we're going through like Brian Jacques Redwall series, and he's loving the stories. And it's one I read to him. And sometimes he'll ask me to make up a voice for one of the characters or do something. So it's just kind of a fun, we'll read a chapter or two a day on nights we don't have baseball. So I'm enjoying that because that was a series. There's like 22 books. And when I was younger, around his age, I'd started, I think I read the first 12 or 13. So we'll see if I think we'll just keep going. It's easy to buy $7 or $8, buy a paperback and read through it over a couple months. So what have you been reading?
Cool. So I tried. So I it's more of a warning because I hate to be negative about anything. But I know you had actually loaned me the hardcover of the Kith and Kin Vox Machina book, and I saw. I'm like, I saw the Audible, and it actually has Laura Bailey and Liam O'Brien, as voice actors in it. Let me just do that. And I started that. And I could not. And again, this isn't one where it's not the book. I think it's the narrator. It was, and I think they just went, there was so much contrast between, again, I can listen to Laura Bailey do Vex voice all day long, right? She could read the phone book, and right, I love that. Liam just also has the contrast between that, and I'll just say milk toast narrator that they, so he was doing that.
Did the rest of the
rest of the book sounded like somebody who would be doing, again, like more of a children's narrator. He just had this kind of, a little bit of a higher voice, right? And it just, the contrast between that and the, and when you had
Their serious voice acting,
the actors
chops.
kind of it was so like jarring that I just could not get into it and whatever. So I punted on that. So not that I think that you read the book. It's probably good, interesting story, especially if you're into critical role stuff. I would just say steer away from even though it sounds interesting, steer away from the Audible.
I'll figure out a way to read it and listen. So when it's their dialogue, you listen.
Right.
Then when it's a section that's narrator, you read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I punted on that.
Why can't everybody get Stephen Pacey or
right? You're a spoiler. Anyway,
every book should be read by Stephen
although
Pacey.
I am kind of every book should be narrated by someone who has a British accent. Like,
yes,
that, like, if you do that, then you have no problem. Like I do, which is why why I jumped to Penitent, which is the second novel in the Dan Abnett Bequin series. So, which is Eisenhorn, Ravener, and Bequin. I'd had this I have the hardcover kind of sitting somewhere, jumped in, amazing, loving it. Again, I should know, it's right up my alley. Abnett's playing with all the toys. It reminds me, it's like, if I took all the Fantasy Flight role playing, it's like Dark Heresy, Death Watch, Black Crusade, all jammed together. And he's telling this really cool story. And I won't spoil it because there's some, especially the first book, there's some real interesting spoilers in there, and you got all the players kind of in the lot of again. There's a lot of nostalgia because some people maybe from the Eisenhorn and Ravener books also appear maybe in the Bequin books, right? Which would be interesting. So I'm almost done with that, but loving that. Problem is there is not a third book yet, so hopefully Dan has that on his radar, but we may be waiting a little bit as he's a busy guy.
That might be a reread. So I feel like I read the Eisenhorn books. I don't know that I have read the Ravener books, but like that would be a series I should add to my 2023. Go back and
I have I just got the whatever it is at the 20 and whatever of Xenos and the Eisenhorn, and it's an annotated hardcover. So it has notes, plus it has like Dan's notes in the margins.
Oh, cool.
So I'm probably going to work my way back through that. Yeah, because I'm so excited about this. I'm like, I need to, because it's been decades, since I probably read that.
Maybe maybe we Eisenhorn our next book club after Malcontent Between Worlds. We can see, or this will be one of our rereads. Because it's been in a while, but can't go wrong on that one. And then I can't remember what I had. I think I had done Car in the Sun that I talked about last time, and and I went into Harrow the Ninth, which is the second book in the Gideon the Ninth series. Space Necromancers again, Harrow the Ninth. It's the second one, and this is about Harrow Hark, who is the one of the main characters with Gideon in the first book. And so there's some, again, super spoilers at the end of the first book, so I won't get into that. Totally enjoyed this book, but it just, Tamsin Muir did some interesting, just really cool. I love as much about the craft of the book as sometimes as the story, right? Like, and the way that she has messed with you. Like you read this book and you're completely confused because you're like, wait, I read the first one a little bit ago, but this doesn't make any sense. And so you're kind of reading this. I am not a huge fan of second person, especially when Chuck Wendig does it. Again, hate to be negative. Oh, okay.
But I shouldn't say not all of his, I don't know. There was a Star Wars book he wrote where it felt so forced. To me, it felt forced, right? I think sometimes second person can feel it feels forced. And here she uses second person in just an amazing way, especially as you get through the book, and because you realize she's using it for a reason, not just as a kind of a stunt. And then also first person. So the way she's using kind of the different points of view is really good. But I would just say if you get in there, I think she does it really. There's a little bit. It's interesting. I always love after I read it to go back and read some reviews, and there are some reviews like, people were totally confused and they give it 2 stars. I'm like, you got to like invest in the book. Like, she's doing it for a reason. Like she's confusing you for a reason in the front and then kind of come to the back. So nice. I really enjoyed that.
Gideon's on my short list to read. It's like in the stack. I have a shelf, with like 6 or 7 books that I want to pull off, and that's in the short stack. I bought it, and queued it up. So hopefully I get to it.
And there are a few. I gotta think. There are a few books that make me laugh out loud while I'm listening, and randomly as you're walking down. There were parts in one. Gideon is one too. Gideon as a character, the dialogue is so great. Like again, I have so many laugh out loud moments with that. So really, kind of enjoyed that as the crazy space necromancers. That is that whole. And again, I'm in the same boat here. 3rd book is not out yet. Will be out, but it is kind of. I think it's done because it's kind of teed up to be published. I think the end of this year. So that's been my reading.
Very cool. The only other kind of thing that I think is relevant from a library standpoint is a couple things that were Netflix related. Ozark wrapped up. Have you watched that show at all?
I started it and realized what kind of a trip you're on for, and I never. But I can appreciate it.
Like 6 episodes dropped, and I feel like a part of me is now missing after finishing the show. And then the other thing, it's on HBO, but so David Simon did The Wire years ago, which to this day I think is the best police procedural / study of a city on the brink, in Baltimore ever. That's fictionalized. But he did a new limited series with John Bernthal, also set in Baltimore, following a gun tracing task force police called We Own This City. And the first 2 episodes I watched out of the 6, and I think 3 are available now on HBO. And if you were ever a fan of The Wire, or you heard good things about The Wire, this show is worth watching. It is a contemporary look at kind of a police department that is constantly under scrutiny, by, and probably rightfully so, by a number of politicians and different groups in the city. But John Bernthal, I think, is a tremendous actor, and he plays kind of a sergeant who's in charge of this task force, or kind of the hot-blooded, police officer that starts with an intro speech, and it's really well done show. David Simon, I think, is a genius, so highly recommend that. No, I said I wasn't going to be watching it as a true library, but needed to touch base on the heartbreak of Ozark and the powerful kind of police procedural / drama of We Own This City on HBO.
Yep. No, it's good. I heard the same. Again, I didn't watch a lot of The Wire, but I always heard such good things, and I'd heard that he had done another show, and people were very excited about it. So. You had mentioned it, I think, we've been kind of doing a quarterly book club with the BoD. We are doing Between Worlds Malcontent, which is the Ethereum book that our friends Paul and Jen DK wrote. And so we're going to probably talk about that sometime in late June or something like that.
Yeah, mid to late June, yeah.
And so we'll probably try and get Paul and Jen or Jen on, and we may press record on some of that and to it. So if you want to, and we probably will be spoilery. So if you want to get ahead of that, grab that book. We'll
put a link. Yep. We'll put a link in the show notes. I know I say we, but Troy will put a link in the show notes for it, and highly recommend, join us. We'll do a virtual book club where you can listen to us talk to the authors and ourselves, anyone else from our group that reads it. But certainly too, like if you're really interested, send questions.
Yep.
We always are looking for discussion questions if you happen to pick that up. So Good deal. Troy, I think that brings us to the end. Any other notes or thoughts before we go into the usual stuff where I bore everyone and people tune out and hit stop on their playlist?
No, well, hopefully they're waiting for the just gripping like what events are coming up as we are back to
Yeah.
actually having events. So people should be exciting.
Yeah.
We should be celebrating this segment since for a long time we didn't have this. So
Way to make perhaps the boringest part of the show the most interest generating.
yep.
You've promoted me, and now I'm going to dive into upcoming events. So right around the corner at the beginning of June, June 8th through the 12th in Columbus, Ohio, is Origins. Interested to see how this one goes. They've merged with kind of a digital game show that's usually in the area. I've heard rumors of dwindling bank accounts at the Origins kind of Gamma pocketbook. So I think a lot hinges on this show and how it does for the future of Origins. Nexus Game Fair, end of June, Brookfield, Wisconsin. So they've moved out to Brookfield, a near suburb of Milwaukee. They had been downtown for a couple years. I think this is their second
Yeah,
year
it's like they had done it
they've been at
in
Brookfield.
2019 when I
Yeah,
think
right,
they were
right
there.
before the pandemic shut down in-person
Yep.
events.
I
Then
will be there on the Friday, which is the whatever 27th, 23rd. I'll be there Friday, probably running some Zombicide. Um,
nice.
you probably might find John or some of that. So
You a
if you're
featured
kind of,
GM?
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think I wasn't famous this year because I'm only showing up for a
Oh,
little bit. But
all right.
but
I was hoping we could promote you being a
well,
celebrity GM.
yeah, we'll see. Probably not, but it'll be fun. It's our true backyard convention. So
Yeah, the
we'll
closest one to home, certainly. Gen Con, August 4th through the 7th, Indianapolis. Event catalog is open. Event registration is Sunday, noon Eastern. So here we are on, I think, Tuesday night recording. But the catalog's out there. Maybe we'll touch on that kind of our next episode after Event Reg. I don't know that I'll be able to get online and even hit like purchase on my wait list. So I might try to just find some stuff to randomly do and um, not worry too much about not getting any of the premier events because usually I find the good ones afterwards when the companies go, oh shoot, we needed to post our games, and they post
Yep.
their games.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah. Again, we'll see what we get. It's even. I mean, last year there weren't a whole lot of events. It seems like there are less events this year, at least in the initial catalog, than there have
Yeah,
been in
I
years
think
past.
Ben put up some stats that
Yep.
like, the original posting was like 15 or 16,000 pre-pandemic. Then it was like 5,000 events in last year's kind of catalog at the time of the event catalog being posting. This year it was like 11,000, and most years it grows by about 20% by the time event registration is. So be interested to see what's in there now with ev- registration, I think Sunday. Yeah, Sunday.
Oh, I'm glad you reminded. I have not even looked at it yet. I saw we had a bunch of discussion, and then I didn't even.
Yeah. Well,
I
I'm
haven't
really
even looked
excited
yet. So
for the Dr. Gabe virtual examination room game. Tickets are not available to the public for that, but contact your local BoD
yeah,
representative for and Dr. Gabe. Um, it's like True Dungeon meets doctor's office, so it'll be great. But he won't actually offer medical advice because he'll be outside of his state licensed home state of Missouri. So. And then NashCon, end of August 20th, 21st. Tom and Bryce and I are planning on going down there, hanging out with Anthony and David and Jacob Berry and Stu and all of our other friends down in Nashville. Just today, I saw somebody post a list. I'm like, this would be fun, but I got rid of all my Beast Claw, so I was messaging Brendan and Bryce saying, hey, can I assemble this list if I paint my own Kragnos with some Frost Lords and Kragnos and just go down and have some fun, probably go 0-5, but have a blast down in Nashville. Ideally, I get to play against Stu at some point. That's
that's
my
it.
it'll be my third NashCon, and I'm yet to get a game against Stu. So, got to figure out a way to make that happen.
That'd be cool. I should figure out a way to get down there at some point. But and now my Sylvaneth got a refresh.
Yeah.
And so I can kind of refresh.
You even got time. If you got on that wait list, that's 3 months out,
yeah,
Troy.
We'll see. I'm trying to figure out a work trip where I go to our office in Louisville.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then head down to I'm going to Nashville. I'm gonna go down to Louisville for a couple days, and then so I don't know. We'll see.
All right.
And then it's not here, but we're already working on Adepticon 2023. Some wheels in motion.
Boy.
We will have some. We'll talk more as plans come to place. But we are already getting excited to do some of that stuff. Can't wait for.
All right.
Wait for that.
That was cryptic, but I like that
cryptic.
we can tease it.
We'll tease it, and as soon as you hear we have some news we can announce, we'll let it go.
Very cool. Excellent. Well, as always, folks, check us out. Hopefully, if you're listening, you've already checked us out, but show us to your friends. Download, like, subscribe. Down here or here, like and subscribe. I've heard you have to do that on YouTube.
On that YouTube thing. Thank you for the couple dozen people that watch us on YouTube. So we're growing. We're getting there.
Yeah, I mean, someday it's going to be, that's the only format. We'll even stop posting the feed. We'll be a YouTube show. We'll be YouTubers. Are we YouTubers yet? I don't know.
I don't know. No, I think you have to get to
define yourself as a YouTuber.
I would say, technically there's that. If you get 1,000 people subscribe to you, then you can actually monetize. And I feel like that's probably the line where people then are really YouTubers up there.
Well, we're not yet, but someday our 24 will become at least 80 and then maybe 100. Anyways, Twitter at Playin Show, basementofdeath.com, where Troy posts all the cool show notes and everything else. All of our emails, you've heard this all before. If you have any concerns with tonight's episode, hit up Josh at basementofdeath.com because it is his fault. And in the meantime, keep the dice rolling, the drinks on ice, and no matter what, keep playing and slaying.